Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's not too windy today, and I decided to get the darn camera out and spend a couple of minutes responding to some of the comments on some of the YouTube videos I've placed over the last couple of years. But first, I'd like to apologize. It's been over a year since I posted a video. I think the last one was the solar panels answering questions by Bill Edwards from Skyline Solar. And that's gotten quite a few responses and all. And unfortunately, I've just been real busy. We've been rebuilding our Zone 1 garden structure, and our Zone 1 is broken up into Zone 1A, B, C, D, and E. I haven't gotten to putting up the greenhouse yet or the sugar shack. Last year I spent most of the year doing earthworks. When you dig these big ponds, and we've got 7 ponds, you've got a lot of material that comes out of there, and I've built roadways and all. And the other thing is we've had to build lots of soil, many yards of soil. And I think I've gone over some of that with our cardboard, and I'll be going over that end with manure as well. These are responses to questions or comments on some of the videos that I'll go over as well. But one of the reasons why we've got to build so much soil is this is basically gravel bed area. Lots and lots of stone and very hard ground. I take the pitchfork here and hit the ground someplace and show you, and it wouldn't go in a quarter of an inch. So we're building permanent raised beds. And I will mention also that Jean-Martin Fortier from Broad Fork Farm in Canada, many of his techniques that he describes in his videos and in his book, we've incorporated as well. Now we build our own soil. They, Curtis Stone, for the Urban Farmer, both Jean-Martin and Curtis have great farm marketing YouTube videos available. Curtis does regular ones that are really fantastic, and I've taken some of their techniques from each of them. We're using tarps for oculation, trying to get stale seed beds so that we have less weeds to deal with. That's worked out very well. We use weed barriers as well. But before going into, without going into more of those issues, there are a couple of comments that people have made that I want to respond to. So one is, someone had mentioned, I'm sorry I just grabbed the camera since I'm doing some watering, and I said, darn it, grab the camera and respond to these. And so I apologize for not remembering the names of the people, and I hope I respond to each of the comments. But one of them was, like, how many people do you have working here? Well, right now it's just me. I'm the one who's retired. My wife also works, and on her vacation and her days off, she's out here either doing transplants, but a big part of what she does is we're a whole food plant-based family. So a big part of what she's doing every day is doing her chores and preparing all of our meals. So we grow most of what we eat at this point, and we have 5 freezers and 4 refrigerator freezers, and I'm going to build a cooler as well so that we can really expand further and further and put up some other hoops. But she works full-time. She's a very responsible clinician, so it takes a lot of hours out of your day to do just the basic full-time work. So I'm the one doing all the let's say the earthworks, the building the garden beds, doing the design systems and all, the waste management systems, the composting and all that sort of thing, and the buildings. So hopefully in the future, one of our barns we're going to convert into a an educational center where we can have workshops here and show some of the things that we do. But for now, back to other questions. So right now, it's just my wife and I, predominantly me, since I'm retired and can do this stuff. With respect to cardboard, there's been several questions or comments about cardboard. One was, dude, take off the tape and the plastic and all off the cardboard. And in some of my mulching videos, the sheet mulching, I just lay the cardboard right down. With my pond patching, I do the same thing with the cardboard. I just spread it out and get it into the system. With my composting, some of it I try to take off some of the tape, and what I do is I put it under the eave of the house for a few days and hope that there's going to be rain, and that kind of makes some of the big gross tape easy to get off. But when I'm composting it, the full cardboard boxes that are broken down, all of the materials go right into it. So I'm going to answer and respond to that comment along with someone asking, gosh, you know, we have all of these toxic chemicals that are used in the manufacture of these cardboards. Now, when we talk about toxins, that's a biological thing. You know, medicine is what I think about. We think of organisms producing toxins. It's very specific, separate from poisons. However, toxic chemicals, we think of the manufacturing process and the byproducts that are being produced. There are numerous compounds that are used in manufacturing that end up in cardboard, or in the inks that are used on cardboard, or in the tapes, that are basically carbon chains and aromatic cycles, or 5 carbon, 6 carbon, benzene-like rings that are put together in such structures that are considered toxins. And I'll just take a side note, and this will respond to one other comment that I'm going to respond to in a moment. There are so many things that we're exposed to, and these complex carbohydrates that are the result of manufacturing processes, or through the combustion of materials like polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. PAHs is one of the ways that you can look at it, is the acronym. These things are, every time something isn't burnt completely, such as in vehicles, any combustion engine, cooking on grills, cooking, all of these things are carcinogens. And they end up getting attached to our leaves, and many of us incorporate our leaves into our mulches, our gardens, or we compost it, or we degrade it, decompose these materials. And fortunately, we've discovered that the fungi break the mycelium, really break these complex hydrocarbons down very, very efficiently. And so many of these sterile or steroid-like complex carbon units that are produced through the chemical manufacturing process of cardboards and a whole variety of different materials are kind of like the structure of the wood that you see. And I use lots of wood chips. And fungi are very good at breaking that down, and they're very good at breaking down some of these toxic chemicals. Biotransformation occurs in our bodies constantly. We're taking things, and for instance, like acetaminophen, that gets transformed into N-acetylbenzoquinonamine, and that's a deadly toxin, and that gets turned into it in our liver, and we can do a lot of damage in our liver, especially if we drink alcohol and take acetaminophen at the same time. However, most things that we're taking into our body gets biotransformed by what are called cytochrome P450 systems, or mixed function oxidase systems in our cells. And these get transformed into things that are either potentially more hazardous, do more cellular injury, or that are are less dangerous and can get eliminated through our bowel or through our urine or elsewhere through our sweat glands. And as we become more aware of the microbiome, those organisms that live within our digestive system that outnumber our cells probably 10 to 1, these things are responsible, these microorganisms are responsible for our immune system and working very well with promoting health. And if you want to learn more about that, and when you Google, I'd say use Google Scholar. Because when you look up cardboard and chemical toxins, you're going to find lots of things that are lots of people who have really gardeners and permies out there posting a lot of fear-mongering, I'd say, about these things. And it's because people who appear to be knowledgeable will make statements and say that, well, this cardboard doesn't break down, water doesn't go through it, it's still the same. Well, you have to look at the situation that was in. I've been using cardboard and I can't get enough cardboard. And we're breaking it down and building beautiful soil. But use Google Scholar when you're searching the web, and find peer-reviewed scientific literature about these things. Because there's lots and lots. You can take one bit of information, I'll talk about toxo in a moment, about cat feces, and you can become paralyzed and want that completely away from you, where there's something so good about it. Let me get back to all of these things that we've got in our environment. The materials that I'm breaking down in the cardboard, the byproducts from that, I think are much less harmful than your sunscreen, your deodorant, the chemicals you have under your kitchen sink, even some of the foods that you're buying in your grocery store. And the name of our sanctuary here is Mindful Living Sanctuary. We really want to look carefully at what's going on around us, both in a naturalistic way, a holistic with a W way, and also it's really important to look at the basic science associated with it. So I know I tend to ramble, I hope I've addressed the cardboard situation. I want to get into manure and feces. If I could build soil with the volumes that I actually need, at the rate that I need it at, without using any fecal material, I would. But I'm not at all concerned about using manure. Now, there are some concerns, and this wasn't a comment, like for instance, there's residual herbicides in many horse manures and hay. These broadleaf herbicides that are used for hay lots that go into horse feces, there's residual, still biologically active herbicides that are affecting, tomato plants, beans, a variety of different garden varieties. So if you're having difficulty with some of these plants, you have to look at that possibility as well. Back to the feces. One of the videos I posted was how we rescue feral cats that can no longer be in the location that they're in, or cats that would be euthanized otherwise. So we have quite a few cats. So we have quite a few litter boxes. And we use crumble, chicken feed crumble. Is that the healthiest stuff to be feeding your chickens? No. Is it pretty good for kitty litter? Yeah, it clumps beautifully. and that can be composted. Now, if you're concerned after I say all this about that being adequately broken down, if your composting style is like many Americans, in other words, putting into a pile, letting it break down, decompose over the year, and then spreading that out in the garden, well, no, it probably isn't getting to 145 degrees, especially the stuff on the outer surface or the bottom surface. And you need to get your piles, it's got to hit 145 degrees in order to kill most of those pathogens and the weed seeds. And you don't want it getting above 165 degrees because then you're going into anaerobic decomposition, and it's not really aerobic composting. Now, I do several different types of composting here, but let's say you're a typical backyard gardener and you don't have time or you don't feel confident with turning the compost and measuring the temperature in it, then I would say do a separate decomposition of the cat feces or dog feces, and you can break that down potentially and use it for your perennials. It can go on your fruit trees, your nut trees, your berry bushes, and all this. And if you don't feel comfortable about it being on the top, you can always put like a mulch on top of that as well. So that's something you can do. Now, I've got this thermometer that's this long, and it's very accurate, and my compost pile right now it's probably only 30 feet long because I've used about 2/3 of it building some of these beds. But it's it's probably 7 foot high and 10 foot wide, and I use Bumblebee. Bumblebee is my nickname for my little excavator I picked up last year for doing all the earthworks and all around here. And that's one of that and my tractor with a loader on it are what I use to keep turning the compost. So I'm taking that, and I'm taking the outer surface of our compost piles, and I'm making sure that that gets incorporated in the center of it, and we're hitting 145 and not going above 165 to try and assure that we're killing all of those organisms. Because the farm that I'm getting most of my manure from, they've got pigs, alpacas, peacocks, plenty of horses, a donkey, alpaca, turkeys, and I'm sure I'm missing a few others as well. And one more thing, when we talk about cat feces, there's a tremendous cat feral, meaning that cats that either were set free to be wild, which is not appropriate, and that have reproduced all over the United States. It's a significant problem. And if you see a little disturbed spot in your garden, well, they may be going ahead and using that as a litter box. And the incidence of people becoming critically ill from cat feces, I don't even know what the incidence is. It's so darn low. People worry about Toxoplasma gondii with women who become pregnant. Many women who have been gardeners, if you do their toxo titers, you find they're already positive. And if they're already positive, they can go ahead and get pregnant and not have any problems with it. Would it be wonderful if we didn't have any of these parasites? Yes, it would. But I think we just need to really look at scholarly articles when we find out about somebody says, oh my goodness, there's these compounds in cardboard, or the parasites in feces can kill you. Certainly I think the CDC has a nice little PDF in Adobe Acrobat file that was, I can't remember which university did it, but they're looking at canine feces and appropriately composting that, and that's going into vegetable gardens. Again, if you can't do appropriate composting, and there is a great deal of science behind composting and doing it correctly, that way you eliminate weed seeds and you eliminate pathogens. And if you're worried about some of these really harmful pathogens, and you got a couple extra bucks, when you buy your chicken at the grocery store, that liquid that's in the chicken, just go ahead and take that to a lab and have them culture that for you. And you see that there's fecal material right there that can be deadly. So we're exposed to lots of things that can be harmful, and the more aware we are about the appropriate ways to mitigate the potential hazards associated with these things that are in our environment, we can address them and manage the issues, address our concerns and fears. One huge mission that we have here is certainly is to reduce our waste. But I also want to recognize waste streams that are being dumped into recycling, which, there's lots of issues, and I won't make this video too long. I want to identify resources that are considered waste products that we can use. I've mentioned before in a video that I was going to try patching a pond that's basically built on a stone wall in a gravel, our property is like gravel bed area, and using cardboard, because I tried patching it 3 times with an excavator and a dozer, bringing in more and more fill, and we had limited success. It really did reduce it, but the material that we have isn't great. And finding a good quality clay in our area that I could affordably bring in the volume that I'd need was pretty expensive. So cardboard is where I went to next. Cardboard, leaves, there is some wood shavings in it as well. And we've had the biggest impact, and I just did that last year. Because we've had a pretty dry season this year, which reminds me I got to change my water system since it isn't all automated at this point. So again, I'm sorry it's taken me so long. I'm so poor at responding to videos and responding to the comments, and I'm just dead tired when I drag myself inside. And I do appreciate the comments, I certainly do, because it really helps me to see what other people are thinking. And when I can, I will shoot more videos around the property, because this is our paradise. This is our investment in our lives that really fulfills the many of the forms of capital, the 8 forms of capital that are described in permaculture. And certainly our health is our most valuable resource, so that's something we take very seriously, and we want to produce the most nutritious, healthy food possible, and if we can use waste products to do that, we certainly will. So thanks so much for your comments, and thanks for your patience for me putting out these darn videos. If anybody in this area, we live in Oswego, New York, has skills with doing video editing and that sort of thing, wants to volunteer some time to come out and shoot some videos, I've got lots to say about many of the jobs that we're doing around here, the bioremediation systems we've got going on, repurposing materials, raised bed gardens, our structures, certainly building passive solar using thermal mass, and certainly looking at things in a very mindful way. So thanks so much, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.